Relax, the keyboard is off, the press box is closed, and the mic is just getting warmed up as the Guardian of the Blue Paint turned writer is about to enlighten us. The show where the writer is fresh off the presses and the ink is not dry. For this week's show, Keith Jones wants the new orange to be a defensive juggernaut. And just how will they get there? Welcome to the Hockey Writers Ink. Join Lance Green and SteelFlyers as we bring you all the latest on the Flyers.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to another edition of the Hockey Writers Ink. As always, I'm your host, Lance Green.
Of course, he is the host with the most, and I'm your co-host, SteelFlyers. How you doing there, writer extraordinaire?
I am pretty stoked for this one. Slowly getting ready for this draft to come. I'm excited. So we got two teams uh, still in the playoffs that are going to be somebody different winning that Stanley Cup. So it's going to be pretty exciting to watch that. But I'm really excited to get the season over to start the off season. I love my
Exactly.
prospects, and I want to see who the Flyers get.
Exactly. And we've been diving deep into the prospect pool as well, especially with last week with Lance releasing his mock draft, Philadelphia Flyers, all 7 rounds, to do the mock draft for the Philadelphia Flyers. And so we agreed on a lot of those players. And quite frankly, some of those players were best players. And, well, if the Flyers did sort of listen to what Lance has to say and what we talked about on the show, I think they would probably get a pretty high A ranking as far as draft grades and things of that nature. But so for this week, Lance, I tell you what, my man, you came out swinging with the whole draft, right? And so much went into that, so much research, so much time. Many articles were written about those players that were on your list. We've done prospect watch shows about those players. We've had some of those players on our shows. I mean, it's really great to see the work that goes into the articles that you write, and that's what we love, man. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. Especially thanks to all you folks out there for sure. But the articles that you put out, Lance, that's what this is all about, and that's why we like doing this. And this one here, we're talking about the whole plan, the whole, what the whole new art is going to be, and the whole 9 yards, and I can't wait to get into it because I'm just as excited as you are. What do you think?
Yeah, so definitely. I wrote this article basically under the pretense of Keith Jones coming out there. He has been circling the media wagons and trying to promote this team
Been everywhere on everything.
yeah, on everything. Like, management brought him in to do. A big media guy, obviously. He's been calling games and been on all kinds of, TV shows, NHL Network, and all that. So he's good in front of the camera and behind a microphone. So, in that sense, in one of those recent interviews, he talked about his vision, where he wants this team to go under his, direction, and of course Danny Brière's being the GM as well. So his vision for this team, where in the article I wrote, Keith Jones has unveiled his vision for the Flyers to become a defensive juggernaut. Now, how might he go about getting that done? And that's what really brought this up and this topic, because he came out and said that he wants to follow his friend Dave Poulin from Nashville,
Yeah,
the longtime
yeah.
GM there. He wants to follow his, blueprint and build this team from the blue line out. So I took that and ran with it and kind of laid out my own blueprint on how the Flyers should go about getting that done.
So that is perfect. Set right into exactly what we're going to be talking about in the show this week. We're talking about episode. Are you ready for this, man? I mean, we're flying at some big numbers already. It's quite impressive, I have to say. Do you know what I mean? So it's we're looking at episode number 126. Wow, 126. And I'm going to go exactly based off of the articles that you wrote and a lot of things that came out, especially with what you said at the very beginning with Keith Jones doing the media circuit and the whole 9 yards. So here we go. Episode number 126. Keith Jones wants the new Orange to be a defensive juggernaut. And just how will they get there? And this coincides perfectly with the article that you put out, Lance, just the other day. I mean, it's smoking hot still on the presses. And I can't wait to get into it. So let's dive right into the deep end of the pool, shall we? Okay. The whole fact of the matter is that a man hired to do a job to come out and be the media spokesman, whatever you want to call it. That's what they wanted the hockey ops to be. All right, cool. So now the hockey ops guy that's supposed to be the media guy has a vision or a plan or what he sees as the future for this particular Philadelphia Flyers. And he wants to do exactly what Nashville has done and maybe what Carolina has done and some of the other, what Colorado has done and has kind of built from the blue line out first, thinking, all right, okay. Now, Lance, you and I both agree that that's a great philosophy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an old goaltender. I love to see a strong defense in front of me. So for sure, that's a great place to start. And just like on a football team, you want to get a good defense, and defense wins championships. So
Okay, right. So with Keith Jones coming out and saying that, and then the first whole section of your article is, man, dude, I gotta tell you, it's some good stuff, man, because I'm trying to put it together here where I find it difficult to believe that a Keith Jones type of guy is coming out with his vision instead of Danny Briere.
mhm.
Because maybe I'm confused and maybe you can help me out with this. And that's why I thought that the first part of that article would try to maybe explain a little bit of things, but it really doesn't, because I'm still just as confused as I was before. Why is the guy that's the president of hockey ops, who's supposed to be this media guy, who's supposed to be this, I mean, this is what the Flyers have said that this position's supposed to be.
Mhm.
Okay. And supposed to be this liaison between management and ownership and have an eye towards the media and the whole 9 yards. Well, why is he the one coming up with the plan?
Well, he may not be the only one coming up with a plan here. He spoke highly of Danny Briere and said that they've been talking, and as well as Tortorello having some input in that as well. So, like they said, Keith Jones is going to be the figurehead, the talking point, and Danny Briere and hopefully John Tortorella are going to take a step back in the media exposure and just do their jobs. I think John Tortorella did most of the talking for the franchise because he was about
Yeah,
the
I would
only one
agree with
there. You know
that.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I kind of would like him just to take a step
Be the
back from
coach.
that, be the coach, and worry about that, not the press trying to go after a hot button topic that he's thrown out there or whatever like that. So in saying that, I think Keith Jones, as a originally what a hockey operations person would be under normal circumstances, they would be the one hiring the GM anyway. And this wasn't the case in point. Danny Briere was already there, but he's going to originally have a vision on bringing in a guy to build his team with a similar vision, I would think, as to what he's going to be looking for, what he stands for as a player when his time was there and all
But
that. So
but that's conventional thinking of what the hockey ops position is, right? So that hence my confusion,
right.
right?
I think this is going to be a round table, like King Arthur. Everybody's going to have a say. Everybody's going to have an equal part and an equal say in this. And you know,
Um,
hopefully, the vision comes out of this. But really, I don't know. Yeah, and the honest answer is I don't know, because they're keeping a lot of stuff, you know, close to the vest. And if they're gonna have Keith Jones out there because they feel he's comfortable most in front of a mic, um, then this is what information is going to be and who it's going to be coming from. So we're, like it or not, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah, this is going to be the fountain of information, I'm thinking as well too. But okay, so let's get into the crux of the article of how are the Flyers going to make this vision come true, whether it's a Keith Jones vision or whether it's a Danny Briere vision or whether it's a John Tortorella vision or whether it's just the Flyers vision. Let's find out, what first of all, I want to know exactly just what is going to be needed for the Flyers to make this happen.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's exactly what you put in the whole first section of the article, right?
Mhm.
So we've talked before. We know there's a lot of things going on here, but why hasn't anything been done yet or now?
I mean, there's not much you can do right now until the season's over. I'm sure they're holding discussions, and some people are maybe calling or hinting at different things. But you know the Flyers are doing their part. They're allowing other teams to know without tampering, whatever else you want to call it. They're letting teams know that they're open for business. They're going to listen to anything out there for any player, and they're in a position where I think they should do that. They have to go through subtraction first, is a big part of the article in the early goings, what I wrote about. And they definitely need to, because if you look at the team, if you look at, say, the Predators teams that Keith Jones has been quoted as and saying that he wants to kind of follow that blueprint that old Dave down in Nashville set out. You're looking at teams that were monsters on the blue line. Teams that had Shea Weber, Ryan Suter, Kimo Timonen, and Dan Hemos all on the same team. That is a juggernaut. All right, that is a juggernaut. Or even the one now with Roman Josi, Ryan McDonough, which I think was a huge bring in guy to solidify that defense. And then, Ekholm was
Yeah,
there.
agreed. No,
Tyson
no, I
Berry
agree.
was
Yeah.
brought in. Dante Fabro was there as well for this team. And, like you said earlier, the Carolina Hurricanes followed that kind of same blueprint and have built a amazing defensive core. And they may not even be big name guys that they have
They're
there.
not.
They're
That's
just
just it.
they're just guys that do certain things well that fit that system, and they make it work, right? But they have a long way to go. The Flyers have a extremely long way to go, and that's why I said subtraction is going to be the first method of and order of business with this team. When you
But
look at it, when you look at a defensive core that is signed and are going to be on the ice as it stands right now for next season, you have Ivan Provorov, Travis Sanheim, Rasmus Ristolainen, Tony DeAngelo, Nick Seeler, and Cam York. Everything's pretty much set.
well, Cam
If
York is a restricted or unrestricted free agent, so he
Right,
doesn't
but
have
they're
a
going to match any
contract.
deal. They're going to match any deal that a team comes in. I don't think anybody's going to put in an offer for Cam York and give up potential picks for a guy that's just really getting going and really not. I mean, he didn't have a great season this year. He showed highlights, but
But you
yes,
never
they are going
know.
to have to sign him still. Okay, I mean, in a sense, if somebody wants to take him and give us multiple first round picks, then great. I'll take that too if somebody wants to outbid us for Cam York. But
Exactly.
I don't think that's going to happen. But when you look at that defensive core, and they were one of the worst teams in the penalty kill. Um, they were one of the worst teams in the regular, 5-on-5 as well. And they only stopped their opponent's advances on the penalty kill 74.7% of the time. And as a whole, they were a minus 53 on the season, with the only person on that defensive core being a plus player last year was Nick Seeler, and he only had a +1 average, finished the season with a +1 average. Okay. That means collectively, when you dive deeper into it, collectively, as a whole, those players for their entire careers are a minus 264. Okay, to put that into some perspective, just one of those current players on the Predators roster in Ryan McDonough best that by ungodly numbers, right? He's a plus 227 in his career. Do you see the difference where we're talking about? And a lot of people want to go out and say plus minus is a team a team stat, and I call BS on that a lot because each player has something to do with that. They're the ones out there on the ice, and I think that so many, as we'll get into it, I think so many people are got this notion of what makes a good defenseman, and it's very skewed in that sense. So they're going to have to find subtraction, and right, you gotta think among that subtraction of those players that we didn't even mention. Ryan Ellis is a player who signed for
Well,
the
now
next.
you're getting ahead of me
Oh,
here now.
yeah, go ahead.
No. I mean, there's so that's kind of what we talked about before. That's what you mentioned about in the article, and that's one of the things that I appreciate about this article is that we all know what we all know what the obvious is, right? We all know that there are certain um restricted free agents or unrestricted free agents that are going to need to be signed, okay, that are going to need to be kicked out unless you want to try to get some kind of trade capital for said, okay, which I don't think. I agree with you. I don't think the Flyers are set to do that. So they getting something done with Cam York now. You had the worst power play unit on in the entire NHL. Why isn't there a new coach being looked at for the power play? I mean, you could potentially be looking at for new coaches for your AHL team. I mean, to me, as far as I'm concerned, there are things that could be being done to improve and make this team better, and they're just not. Okay. You mean to tell me you're going to go back into this next season with the same group of coaches that you got?
Well, they might not, because one of their coaches, for some ungodly reason, is being looked at for a head coaching job.
Well,
So,
that's not happened because somebody else was hired for the Capitals.
right. But in a sense, the Flyers had been looking, and if he went, I don't know why they haven't fired some staff after the season, but um, in
What
that
are you
same
waiting
token,
for?
they had a guy they've been looking at, and to bring in if one of those assistant coaches left. So, they had somebody in place pretty much if he left. But what I'm saying is,
That
why
guy
didn't you
didn't
make the
leave.
change anyway? Yeah, why
That
didn't you
guy
make the
didn't
change
leave.
anyway? Yeah.
You're and you haven't done anything to try to improve this team at all. Nothing. I mean, are you even able to do anything right now? I know you can't
Really?
make any trades. Do you know what I'm saying? But I know you can be looking at coaches. I know you can be talking to those people. I see them being hired. I'm seeing GMs being hired. I'm seeing, hockey ops guys being hired, the whole 9 yards, right? You just changed your whole front office. You could be changing coaches too. What? I don't. Isn't anything being done?
No, I
Here
think you
we
got to wait till
are.
after the season. Yeah.
Here we are. 4 weeks barely to the draft.
And that's what they're probably focusing on. They're probably focusing
Well,
on the
okay.
draft first. That
I
is
hope
going to be the
so,
first thing,
because you guys got a lot on your plate, let me tell you. And speaking about having a lot on your plate, the things that we are talking about with, Lance Long and with some ideas on just how we can take care of this. And, of course, it's all contingent on if Danny Briere can make these deals. This is a big giant list of if. Okay, and it's not all of it's going to happen in this year,
No.
right? So talk to me about what you started talking about before we got into this. You started talking about the Ellis contract,
Right.
right?
And above all that, yeah, I mean, you had those big list of guys that are going to be pretty much set on the defensive core already. But on top of that, the Flyers have to pay Ryan Ellis, and that contract, a lot of people go out and say, "Oh, they should just trade Ryan Ellis's contract." And okay, that's easier said than done. You forcing another team to pay for a guy that is never going to play again. Not too many teams want to eat that money, and the Coyotes are one of those teams that did it in the past for us with Chris Pronger and Shane Gostisbehere. Now, obviously, Shane Gostisbehere was still playing, but took that contract off our hands and ate a lot of that money for us that we didn't want anymore. But we had to pay dearly for that, and I don't think the Flyers are going to want to give up any draft capital or draft picks in that sense to get that done. And I don't think the Coyotes really are in a position to take on that kind of contract anymore. I mean, look at them. They're
They
had to
barely
get
have
bailed.
to
They had to
play.
get they had to get bailed out multiple times because they couldn't pay their bills. They got kicked out of one arena because they didn't pay their bills. They've they're currently playing in a college stadium that only holds 5,000 people. They got turned down for a multi-billion-dollar deal that tax hike in another city in Tempe that turned down they're building a new stadium for them. And Logan Cooley doesn't even want to sign with them and decided to go back to college even after he was pretty much one of the best players in the NCAA and probably could make the jump very easily to the NHL. So that's easier said than done. Nobody's going to want to take on Ryan Ellis's contract and have to pay him $6.25 million for the next 3 or 4 years for nothing. So you look at other guys. Anthony DeAngelo's a guy that maybe could be moved. He has 1 year left on his contract, a lot less term on his contract for sure than others. And
Yeah,
but
but
he's getting paid $5 million.
it's a steep 1 year term.
Sure, it is. If somebody's in need of it, they may pay, and the Flyers may need to eat some of that contract. Um, a good way to do that is to retain 50%. It's only for a year, and you gain $2.5 million to go out and sign or re-sign somebody else. So that's doable. Somebody might do that.
Or you could get some type of potential capital, or I mean, you know what I mean? Because the Flyers are lacking a second round pick. So any kind of deal that needs to be done has to involve some kind of a second round pick or another first round pick, or I mean, you know what I'm saying? So that's just the Ellis contract. Then you got the whole D'Angelo thing. He might be able to get traded. He might be able to do a draft day deal with him. Do you know what I'm saying? But see, like this is all just all right. So now you got D'Angelo. Now let's talk about the big contract now, Ristolainen.
Ristolainen, I don't think he's going to be moved. He has multiple years. The Flyers overpaid him at $5.1 million a year, and good luck trying to find another NHL club dumb enough to take a former first-round pick on that is a career minus 176. All right, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. The Flyers had rose-colored sunglasses on when they made that trade because they wanted a physical defenseman because they don't have any besides him. If they wanted a physical defenseman, they should have never traded Racco Gudas in my mind. So
But
there's that.
now I'm gonna
That's not going to
say
happen.
that I'm gonna go say that, and it's on record. Keith Jones has a much liking for Ristolainen and feels that he very much wanted him to be on the team and was very glad that he's on the team. And I understand why a guy like Keith Jones would like a Ristolainen on the team, because he feels that's the kind of guy that's gonna be like a Nick Delarose. You know what I mean? Like you need that Nick Delarose guy on your team because Ristolainen ain't going to be that guy. He's just a big dude but he's not as intimidating. I mean, he is, but he isn't. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
he
Like
can hit, but he's not going to go after somebody and
that,
fight
yeah.
somebody like
He's
that.
not
He's
going to
not a
drop
fighter.
gloves and start swinging, and you're not going to realize that you're fighting one of the best fighters in the league.
Mhm.
Like that guy, I think should stay on the team.
Well, I mean, and also you have to think when, Keith said all that, he was up in the booth and he had to find something nice to say because he was the voice, one of the voices of the Flyers. He has
Okay,
gone on
but
record and said that he does like him, but all that might change when he actually has the power to influence trade and everything like that now, and behind the scenes. Could definitely be something different from what he said on national broadcast to keep, you know, the team going and people behind there. But I think the obvious choice of any of those players to better this defense is to first, it sounds crazy, but to get rid of one of their best defenders in Ivan Provorov. Ivan Provorov is signed, still 26 years old. He signed for a
wait,
couple
say
of
this
years.
say this with a bit of a grain of salt. He's one of the best defenders on the Flyers.
Sure, sure.
All right. Sorry about that, folks. We were talking about Lance's idea of trading one of the Flyers' best defensemen in Ivan Provorov, and the reason behind doing this, Lance, is what we were talking about. So, elaborate on why we feel that trading an Ivan Provorov is something that is what should be being done or thought about
Sure.
or at least considered.
Well, I mean, to begin with, he is the most um, valuable piece that we have on the defense to get rid of, to bring back as much as we can. Now, Ivan is still relatively young. I think he's 25, 26 years old. But to me, I don't think he turned out to be the player that we thought he would, or the caliber that we thought he would, with being that seventh
Just
overall
never
pick
got
in
there. You know what I mean?
2015, right? Right. But he is a minute eater. I think that he is a great, you know, player, but just not a number one guy like the Flyers have been utilizing him as. I think he's a solid number two for a good team. And you have to think that the Flyers have Cam York. They drafted him to be the guy. He plays the same position, the same side, the left side, as Ivan Provorov, as Travis Sanheim, and he's stuck right now. They're playing him on the opposite side and all this stuff. So the Flyers need to move on and try to get as much as they can. And I think they could for Ivan. He has a decent contract with some term left on it. And a team like the LA Kings would be wise to get him, I think, because they have a wealth of right-hand shot defensemen, but they have nobody to play that left side. And I think he would be perfect pairing partner for Drew Doughty. Um, and that would be a great pairing because let's face it, the LA Kings have Anze Kopitar, they have Drew Doughty. That core group is getting old, and if they want to win, they got a lot of youth moving forward. He would be a guy. Ivan would be a guy for them that would be a veteran on that team in a couple of years. Obviously, and moving forward, and I think it'd be a great pick for them. And now who might they get back for him? In my mind, the first person I would ask for is Braden Clark, and he's a right-hand shot defenseman, 2021 eighth overall pick. He's 20 years old now. He stands at 6'2", 185 pounds, and he is an excellent partner for Cam York in the future here. And even if the Flyers had to possibly move a third or fourth round pick to get this deal done, I would do it. In a sense, you want a guy. You're saying you want to build through the defense or the blue line, and this is a way to solidify that real quick because Braden Clark has been playing at like a 2 point per game average in the OHL this year. He had 23 goals, 38 assists for 61 points. He was a plus 40 average. There we go again with that plus players. That is a great thing.
See,
A defenseman
yeah.
who actually is as good offensively as he is defensively. He's solid on the back end. and he's played with the Kings at some points this past season. He played in the American Hockey League as well. He's done it on all levels, and he has shown the ability to do it on all levels, and even took it to World Juniors this year, where he played for Team Canada in 7 games and totaled 8 points. So this guy is the future, but the Kings have a ton of right-hand shot defensemen in their system already. He would be a brighter spot to that defensive core. But if they want to win now, they're a playoff team. Right now, their core group is getting older. You know, adding Ivan Provorov, I think, would be great for the Kings, and it would be great for the Flyers to move on from that, free up some cap space, bring in some youthful players that are gonna be here and hitting their stride in 2 to 3 years, when the rest of the team should be now taking place with the draft picks that are coming in.
See,
It just makes sense.
No, I also am with you. I'm on the whole plus minus thing. I'm a big proponent on that particular stat myself. I look at that stat as a telltale of how a player is playing. Okay, it's great if you're out there scoring the goals and you're, you know, you're them like the Austin Matthews and the Connor McDavids. But if you have just as many goals scored against you as you have as many goals as you scored, then you're not effective as you should be, right? So that means you need to be responsible. And for, to me, a player that's responsible, that shows me that a player is responsible, is that they have a low minus number or a pretty nice high plus number for either the year or for their careers in you know, in a stat that goes you know. I'm also a proponent of doing exactly that. I think if Provorov could be moved, I would be willing to try to do something to get a second round pick, because a young guy that we talked about, and you even mentioned this in your article, Anthony Morin, if they were able to garner a second round pick and they could land him in the draft, or, you know, some way, shape, or form to try to get that to particular type of player, because I really feel that Morin would be a much better suit for the Flyers with uh the guy Clark that you mentioned, right, and Cam York, right, and then you throw in Morin. I know Morin would be a rookie and all, but I think he would be able to make that jump to be, even if he was drafted in the second round. I just have that feeling, because just of watching him play. But even if he's not this year, next year, you know what I'm saying? So,
Well, yeah, definitely. They could do that. And a way to go about that, as well as trying to garner a second round pick, is they have multiple thirds and multiple fourths that they could package together,
right,
move up and get that second round pick
exactly.
this year, and make an impact player that is going to be ready that much sooner, like you said. Maybe not this year, but maybe the year after. And in saying that, you know, Moran is that type of plus defenseman that we're looking for, right? He's a hard-nosed player. He is a guy that stands people up on the blue line. You know, Flyers fans think
With authority.
right. Think Darian Hatcher, think Chris Pronger.
Oh yeah, that's a great comparison with him, the way he likes to hit guys there. Yeah, that's a good one. He also has that good first crisp pass out of the zone. You know what I mean? He's got really good vision. The game slows down. The puck is on his stick. Do you know? And that's kind of what the Flyers wanted Provorov to be. They wanted him to be that, hey, let's let him, you know, learn 1 year under Niskanen and whatever, and, you know, maybe that'll rub off and he'll be that guy. He's just wasn't that guy. Do you
No,
know what I mean?
he never was. But in that same token, you know, the Flyers have to change the way they're thinking about what type of defense they bring in. They've tried the Shane Gostis Bears. They've tried the Travis Sanheims. You know, Those guys aren't working. They're too offensively minded. They're not worried about what's happening in the back end. And a lot, and this is NHL wide if you think about it, because you look at the benchmark player that people think, and that's Erik Karlsson, right? That he's been doing it for so long. He had like 101 points this year, right? He's won 2 Norris trophies. Everybody likes this type of player. Everybody's trying to find this type of player, but let let me ask you, has he ever won a Stanley Cup? No. Um, the league as a whole wants to feel these players, these defensemen need to score 100 points to be somebody. And I'm not looking for my defense to score 100 points a season, because when you get a guy like that is so focused on the offense only, you look at Karlsson. He was scored on the most of any defenseman in the NHL this year. He had an NHL leading 126 goals scored against him when he was out on the ice this year, and he was a minus 26 player for the year. This is not the type of guy you
Wow.
need. The Sharks are picking before the Flyers, okay? Even with his amazing stats of 101 points this year from the blue line, they're picking before the Flyers are, because they lost so many games because he's only out there trying to score goals. And this is a problem, and
That's
the
not what the Flyers need.
this is not what the Flyers need. They need to find a guy like this Moran guy who's coming in. He has the offensive ability. He's 18 years old. He's 6 foot tall, 183 pounds. He scored 21 goals, 51 assists for 72 points in only 67 games played. So he's scoring at over a point per game, but he's also doing it on the back end, doing all those things, putting people on their butts, standing up guys at the blue line, lifting sticks in front of the net, moving players out in front of the net, handling the board battles and winning them. And that's why he was at plus 29 this year. All right. This is the type of player that you need to find.
I
Somebody
agree
who's
100%.
who's who can help out on the offense, but it's not their sole mission, right? A defenseman is a player who's supposed to take care of their own zone first and prevent goals, and this is what Moran does.
When the first part of your position starts off with the word defense,
Hmm.
I would seem to think that no matter what you do, the first thing that you need to be thinking about is, how do I keep the opposition from coming into my zone? Much less scoring on me. How do you keep them from even coming into my zone? What's am I allowed to do to keep the guy from coming into this zone? Can I take his freaking head off? Oh, I can't. I can't swing my stick like an axe. Nope, can't do that either. Well, what can you do? Well, you can forecheck, and you can stand guys up at the blue line, right? And you can prevent those transitions by having good crisp passes and not doing the turnovers in the neutral zone and creating those odd man rushes. I mean, look, this is hockey 101 here, people.
And
Okay.
and that's what they need to take it back to. They need to take it back to the old days where defensemen were defensemen and prevented goals, and the offensemen went and scored the goals. It's
Hey, how
not
about that?
it's
Let's
not
let
it's not
guys
that
with
hard, right? It's
the
not that hard.
skill and the shower and the deeks and the dunks and the dangles and all that. Let's let them guys worry about the goals, right? Look, I'm sorry, they're the quarterbacks. Okay, they get the girl, and they're the ones that get the microphone shoved in their face. Nobody's talking to the goalie unless they're, shutting things out. Nobody's talking to the defenseman because nobody does, right? They're talking to the guy who scored the goal.
Well,
Well,
and I
great.
always and I always tell my players too. The a defenseman, like you said earlier, a defenseman is only good when you don't notice them. All right. If you don't notice a defenseman, it means they're doing their job. If you do notice them, even if they're making a good play, when you notice them, it means that they were probably out of position and had to haul butt back to, get back to
To get into position.
make that amazing play
Yeah.
because they were out of position. If they were
Yeah.
in position, the opposition wouldn't be in position to score.
Yep.
They they would force them over to the boards to take bad shots and everything else. And that is the sign of a good defenseman, when you don't notice them the whole entire game. When you hear their name being blasted on the telecast, it means they probably messed up.
Yeah, and usually that's how it goes. Look, here's the I think that we, even though we have a different ways and means of getting there, I think we agree with Keith Jones and or the round table, or whatever you want to call this new orange, right? If it's going to be a collection of voices, okay, good. But we all agree that, building the team as a defensive juggernaut. Well, duh, right? Like, that's, thank you, Captain Obvious,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, especially when your team has been in the bottom in defense for the last 4 years plus. When your
Right.
team has been at the bottom for the last 4 years plus in penalty kill. When your team, I mean, yeah. So, with this awesome article that you put out, you mentioned about the Brant Clark with the LA Kings. We talked about the Flyers trying to garner draft picks in this year or next year's draft, particularly second rounds in this year's draft or in any in next year's draft. It doesn't matter. But can we have some more, please? Can we have some more? I would be more than willing to do exactly what you said as far as trading some of our current third and fourth round picks in order a second round pick. I'll be more than willing to trade a Provorov or a Carter Hart. Nobody is safe. Everybody's on the table. If somebody comes calling, I gotta listen to what the deal is, because if the deal's gonna net result me something that is similar to or better than, then that's a win-win for me, right?
Yeah. Yep. I think that's a solid deal. And I mean, in the last part, we talked about free agency briefly. Um, the Flyers shouldn't be focusing on acquiring big name free agents. They're in full on rebuild mode, right?
Not right now. They shouldn't be.
Right, right, exactly. They shouldn't be. But they have, with those guys, if they trade away a Provorov, if they trade away a Sanheim, if they do something like that, they may need a bridge player. And this is where I was getting at that. They may need a stopgap guy that can fill in for a year or two, right? Because we all know that Zumala's coming up, Ronnie's down there, Emil Andre's there, Ethan Sampson's been looking pretty good in juniors, but they have to prove it to John Tortorella that they can make the NHL club. A spot isn't just going to be given to them. They have to earn it. And this summer is going to be big for a lot of those guys. But what happens if none of those guys really stand out and we move somebody? They're going to need somebody for a short amount of time, maybe a year or two, to bridge that. And a guy that could do that is Ryan Graves from the New
Yeah,
Jersey Devils. All right.
yeah.
He's an unrestricted free agent this year. He's 6'5", 220 pounds. He's only 28 years old. Um, Scored 8 goals, 18 assists for 26 points. So he's not a flashy guy in any sense, but what he does
Yep.
amazingly. All
Yep.
right. He led the league in 2019, 2020 when he was playing with Colorado and the amazing defenseman partner of Cal McCarr in plus average, right, for that year. He's a plus 40. Well, this year on a whole different team, he was a plus 34 and again amongst the leaders, right? He's been there for 2 seasons, and look what the Devils did over those 2 seasons. They were drafting before us, all right, just a season ago. And this season, what did they do? They made it to the playoffs. They went on huge stretches, and because of that, a reason because, not the whole reason, but a reason for that is Ryan Graves coming in and being able to solidify that defense enough to make a difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
up that goaltender and to let him know that he's going to be there. And I really think that he was only getting paid 3 million, around 3 million. what obviously I think Travis Sanheim should be getting paid. They overpaid him, but if they could get a stopgap guy, would be the guy I would get until some of our young, youthful guys prove themselves enough to step in and take
Yeah.
over that job.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Lance, I'll tell you what, I think we've given the great folks out there that follow us, that like us, that subscribe to us a good vision of what we think Keith Jones' vision of the future should be, or a way to get to that defensive juggernaut by giving you guys some names, giving you guys some ideas about what we think and feel should be how this should be approached and how it should be handled. So that's the way we are. We're all about what we feel that this team should do in order to be successful, and I just want to see things being done to improve this team. I know that not everything's going to happen all at once, and it's not all going to happen this year. But you can't tell me that you're going to go into the next season with all of the same coaches. That's insanity, if you ask me. There's no reason why that should be the case. Okay, but it is what it is. So with what the free agency, with the draft, and everything else, there's many opportunities out there for the Flyers to improve this team now and in the very near future. So, Lance, do you have any articles that you're working on or anything else now that you've kind of unleashed your mock draft and the whole thing? What do you got? Anything else brewing?
I have some prospect articles brewing right now. I not anything as of yet for the Flyers. I'm kind of waiting for some new news, any news to happen regarding
Something,
the
news,
Flyers,
anything, please.
right?
Something, right?
So we'll see.
Okay, awesome. Well, why don't you tell the folks where we can find you and where we can get all your great stuff, man?
Sure, you can always find me on SteelFlyers.com. You can find all my stuff on Twitter as well at Lance Green 39.
Awesome sauce. And you can find me, SteelFlyers52, on Twitter, or you can find all the great stuff at the Steel Flyers website at steelflyers.com, where you can buy a t-shirt from the Hockey Writers Ink or a Steel Flyers t-shirt. By all means, go over there, check it out. $25 plus tax and shipping and handling, and you get a nice, really, really nice t-shirt that wears really well and launders really well too. So go check that out for sure. Also check out the Prospect Watch Show and all the great other shows that are on the SteelFlyers All Sports Network. I am SteelFlyers, your co-host. This has been the Hockey Writers Inc. We will catch you guys all on the next episode. We'll catch you later.